You're tuning into Black and White Sports on YouTube. The no-holds-barred truth on sports. The main event starts now.
All right, Raiders fans, I have not forgotten about you. I assure you. We're about to talk about a little Las Vegas Raiders action, and it's going to tie in to Jim Harbaugh. Now, Michigan is leading right now this very second, 23-10 without him. Maryland's deep in territory right now. Actually, I've got this pause, so the game may be over for all I know right now. But work calls nonetheless. So we're going to talk about Jim Harbaugh because there's starting to be some fire around Jim Harbaugh in this Raiders head coaching job. Now, many of you are pulling for Antonio Pierce, and I'm not going to kid you. So far, so good, right? You're 2-0 under Pierce. I will say, I think much like Harbaugh, he's a very good leader of men, probably. But we know Harbaugh's got the X's and O's part of it. And the one thing you know, and I've talked about this before, I'm a Niners fan, I'm a Michigan fan. Lots of Harbaugh experience right here. If you are a Raiders fan, you will love Harbaugh. Your teams will be good. They will be competitive. All right? He will build a great offensive line and a great defensive line. There's just no doubt about it. The man knows how to build programs, college and pro. So we don't know what's going to happen. And you've got a young quarterback. Be aware that quarterback has to develop. And if I had to develop a young quarterback, Jim Harbaugh is probably one of the 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 names in college or pro football that I would want involved in the guy that saved Alex Smith's career. I would think about that. Developed Andrew Luck. So let's get to this, but the Athletic, we know the Harbaugh situation right now. He's not coaching this game. He won't be coaching next week. We all know he's very, very fed up, most specifically with the college setup. The NCAA is really the issue there, and it's an issue for a lot of schools and a lot of head coaches. That's why you've seen so many other programs act like this really isn't that big a deal. The sign stealing thing, all right? And we're finding out now that there was a rogue coach involved in this situation, and pretty much that Harbaugh didn't know anything about it. So, University of Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh has endured intense scrutiny. This is the Athletic, and they're pretty tied in, a lot of their guys that cover these teams specifically, because of the sign stealing scandal that has engulfed his program. By season's end, he will serve 2 3-game suspensions. The first was imposed at the start of the season following alleged recruiting violations within the program. The second by the Big Ten Conference last week in response to a current controversy. Could this entice Harbaugh, 59, to return to the NFL? We've talked about there's already a lot of fire around his name. I think he's coming back this coaching cycle, and it's going to be, look, if it's not the Raiders, which he has ties with, we'll get to that, it'll be the Bears, okay? I would assume it would be the Bears. The Chargers, they're going to be another contender in this thing. Harbaugh is among those expected to receive consideration in the next hiring cycle. According to a league source who has been briefed on discussions, high-ranking NFL officials have talked about potential head coaching candidates, and 2 other league sources who regularly talk with teams about hiring and firing decisions said at least 2 teams, the Bears and the Raiders, are believed to be among those that would appeal to Harbaugh. The individuals spoke on conditions of anonymity. Of course they will. Nobody's going to put their name on this. To talk freely about the situation. Last week, the Big Ten suspended Harbaugh for the rest of the regular season, saying Michigan was found to be in violation of the sportsman policy, quote, conducting impermissible in-person scouting operation over multiple years, resulting in unfair competitive advantage that compromised the integrity of the competition. Michigan is 10-0 and ranks third behind Georgia and Ohio State in the recent college football playoff rankings. So, that brings us down here. That outward support, let's see, where am I at? Harbaugh has denied knowing. Former Michigan football staffer Connor Stallions coordinated the in-person scouting opinions, which is against NC2A rules, and the coach has continued to receive public support from the university. That outward support has come despite Wall Street Journal report that school officials recently rescinded a handsome contract extension offer for Harbaugh, who, when asked about the report, say, quote, "I wouldn't say that's accurate." No, they haven't pulled any contract extensions. Yet, the question about a potential NFL return remains. The Raiders already have a head coaching vacancy after firing Josh McDaniels November 1. Former NFL linebacker Antonio Pierce is serving as an interim head coach, is 2-0 so far. There's no guarantee Pierce will parlay the interim job into a full-time position. Meanwhile, Matt Eberflus remains under contract with the Bears, but faces uncertain future given this team's struggles at 3-7 and lack of growth by franchise quarterback Justin Fields, who's expected to start Sunday versus the Lions. He's missed the last 4 games, dislocated thumb. Harbaugh's pre-existing relationships with high-ranking members of both teams can make the head coaching jobs there appealing. Bears team president and CEO Kevin Warren knows Harbaugh from his former role as the Big Ten commissioner. Harbaugh, a former quarterback, also played in Chicago for 7 of his 14 seasons after the Bears made him a first-round pick in '87. This is where the Raiders come in. As for the Raiders, Harbaugh was the team's quarterbacks coach from 2002 to 2003. He is friendly with team owner Mark Davis and Tom Brady. By the way, Tom Brady's trying to become a minority owner. Mark Davis wants to add people that brings additional validity to the franchise in the eyes of the NFL. Most notably, Roger Goodell and some of them other owners that don't like Mark Davis very well. And Harbaugh, along with Brady, are Michigan alums, and he's also the current coach of Michigan. You see where these lines are being drawn. The Raiders, who also fired general manager Dave Ziegler last week, would seemingly also be able to offer Harbaugh the opportunity to provide input in personnel decisions. Harbaugh coached the 49ers from 2011 to 2014. He was the NFL's Coach of the Year in 2011, advanced 1 season later to the Super Bowl. He lost 34-31 to the Ravens, coached by his older brother, John Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh and the 49ers mutually parted ways. Look, for the longest while, that looked like the worst decision in the history of bad decisions. And if Kyle Shanahan hadn't gotten his team where it's at right now, finally, this would still be viewed a certain way. And I'm going to tell you, I still view it that way. I believe if Jed York would have made the right choice and chose Jim Harbaugh over Trent Baalke, that 49ers team would have won a Super Bowl already. Okay, so it was a bad decision. I will give Jed York credit. I feel like he has pivoted and he learned with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to let them make the decisions and keep your coach happy. Jim Harbaugh, the 49ers parted ways at the conclusion of the 2014 season after multiple clashes over personnel decisions. Michigan named him head coach just 2 days later. Since then, he has gone 84-25 in 9 seasons with back-to-back appearances in the 2021-2022 college football playoff. Most notably, he's beaten Ohio State now. Okay, look, I'm just telling you, as a Michigan fan, that's part of it. Harbaugh said in February 2022 the potential chance to chase another Super Bowl prompted him to interview with the Vikings, who never offered him the job. However, I told you that we cover the Broncos on this channel. These Walmart people wanted to hire him even above Sean Payton, and he decided not to take the job. Okay, so I'm throwing that out. They wanted DeMeco Ryans. They wanted Jim Harbaugh more than Sean Payton. Later that month, Harbaugh and Michigan agreed to a 5-year, $36.7 million contract. Quote, there was a pull to the NFL because I got that close to the Super Bowl, Harbaugh said then. But this was the time to try and return, and this is the last time. Now let's go chase college football's greatest prize. And look, I think that would still be his attitude right now, provided that this thing wasn't going on at Michigan in the NCAA. I think he's fed up. I think he's done. Look, the 49ers, Jed York meddling is what pushed him out the door there. The NCAA and now the Big Ten's meddling is going to push him out the door at Michigan and back to an NFL team. I think the Raiders make a lot of sense here. So, Josh McDaniels' boy right here, you're seeing him. Jakob Johnson, a fullback. Oh, that's right. He's not with the team anymore. By the way, there's rumors he may be going back to the Patriots. Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler are no longer running the Raiders. Thank God, said every Raiders fan ever. Another indication of that Another indication of that Friday morning when the team released fullback Jakob Johnson. He was brought to Vegas by McDaniels and Ziegler. When they came to Las Vegas in 2022, Johnson was with McDaniels and Ziegler in New England under interim offensive coordinator Bo Hardegree. The Raiders simply went away from the fullback position and have had better success on the ground, led by tailback Josh Jacobs. While Johnson's role has diminished, Raiders interim head coach Antonio Pierce indicated Friday morning that he could return to the team at some point. Johnson actually has been out the past 2 games with a concussion. He was practicing fully this week. Johnson was playing around 25% of the time when he was healthy. Now the Raiders offense will proceed without featuring a fullback. So if they're not going to feature a fullback, they're probably not going to bring him back. But maybe they decide to add some of those packages back in, and they do bring him back. But as of right now, the stench of Josh McDaniels continues to get further and further away from the team, which I know makes many of you happy, and I don't blame you one bit. I really don't. Antonio Pierce, the thing that's going to be hard for Mark Davis to do here, and I looked at the schedule again, there's a chance you go 500 the rest of the way. Let's say 500. That's an admirable coaching job. It is. And if these players like Antonio Pierce, the problem is the feeling, especially from Raiders Nation, is they should have hired Rich Bisaccia after John Gruden. So it's going to be interesting to see how Raiders Nation responds to even a Jim Harbaugh. If Antonio Pierce has success, what do you do? Now, look, I'm always going to side Harbaugh. If I've got a team and I need a coach, that's the dude I'm hiring. All right? And I like Antonio Pierce so far. And, I mean, don't get me wrong. If he wins out and you make the playoffs, you have to hire Antonio Pierce. That writes that book itself. But if you don't, and if you stumble or something happens, and Mark Davis can get Jim Harbaugh in that brand new stadium, the Death Star, you got to do it. I mean, if you can get Harbaugh in there, sign him to a 6-year contract, find a general manager that is tight with Harbaugh, put that together as a package deal in the same way that Lynch and Shanahan are tight. But like Shanahan, he's got final call on personnel. And I'll tell you right now, you hire Harbaugh, within 2 years, you're absolutely right there. AFC West, AFC playoffs, and he'll have you in contention. That's just what Harbaugh does. Tell me what you think. Peace. I'm out. Till next time.
Thanks for watching the show. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in next time on Black and White Sports.